Hey there. Welcome to the Fearlessly Curious podcast, your safe space to listen, lean in, and learn the diversity of human experiences through the lens of fearless curiosity. When we learn more about each other, we also learn more about ourselves. I'm really excited this week because I have my first guest on the Fearlessly Curious podcast, and I'm deeply honored to be able to have none other than my mother. Hi, Mom. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you, Melissa, for inviting me to be your first guest.
Of course, Mom. I mean, I wouldn't be here if not for you.
It's blessings from God. I'm blessed.
And I amplify that, Mom. Thank you. Thank you so much. And this journey of contemplation through speaking, this sort of audio platform first started for us during lockdown in Malaysia, right?
Yeah,
I'm on
it was
Clubhouse.
just out of fun. And I don't know how I got persuaded into actually answering questions in Clubhouse.
I think I managed to persuade you to do that because, Mom, can you share with everybody what your brand vintage is?
My goodness. Now I'm almost talking like a dinosaur. Born in the 30s and it's now 2022. Can you imagine the decades I've gone through, the different types of upbringing? Every generation, every decade have slightly different values, although basically the core value is the same. Home, love for family, respect for elders, respect for each other, and basically to do our best at all times and to be kind to everybody, all the basic rules. So the only thing that have changed through the decades, maybe in our days, we don't question too much what our elders tell us. We just do. Even though we don't agree, we think that our elders know everything and we just have to follow. But then when you go to school and have education and you're taught self-respect and what you know, you must speak out. Otherwise, there won't be any improvement. And the other party, your elders, don't know what you want, don't know what you think, and don't know whether they're on the right path. So we should point it out to them. But of course, it's not an easy thing to do. You need to do it still showing a lot of respect, if you know what I mean. Because elders in those days don't like to be questioned. Do as I tell you, not as I do.
Oh, I love that opener, Mom. That's giving us a real insight. Actually, it was almost like jumping timelines. For a moment there, you took us back to what it was like to grow up during the 40s. It would have been the 40s, right? For you, 40s and 50s as a young adult. So that's timeline jumping. That's like taking us back in a time portal through your lens of your experience. And I love what you shared there about not questioning our elders and how that's measured as a respect. Because this podcast, as you know, is called Fearlessly Curious. And when we're curious, we do exactly that. We question. And the thing is, we question not because we are challenging a belief, but because in a way we're challenging a belief, but not because we're being defiant, but because we're exploring alternative perspectives.
I think defiant is a good word. Yeah. Not challenging, not trying to be defiant, but curious.
So the intention behind that is very important. And it's wonderful to have you here because I think it's very important for those of you listening, for us to be fearlessly curious with the elders in our family. So if you are fortunate as I am to still have your parents, I no longer have my father around, but I still have my mother, that you spend that time asking questions, getting a sense of what it was like for your mother, your father, whoever it was that you spent a lot of time with when you were growing up, your aunts, your uncles, whoever your caregivers were, to ask them, what was it like to be a young person growing up? What was it like to be a teenager? What was it like when you were in your 20s? What was it like when you got married? What was it like when... Ask these questions because life was very, very different then. And it gives us, the children, the grandchildren, and maybe even the great-grandchildren, an opportunity to learn about the progression, the evolution of humanity. And it also gives us an opportunity to hold space, to provide that loving space for our elders who, when we were growing up, took care of us, always had time for us. When we learn about what our elders have lived, it gives us an insight as to what has formed their characters and personalities. And that way we, the current generation, can be more compassionate so that when, for example, now I look at you, Mom, and there are certain things that you didn't understand me for. Now I understand why you didn't understand me. Because in your time, things were so different. So now I can be more curious as I learn about you. I can be more curious about myself as to how I can explain a situation to you. I can find a way to describe my point of view to you that is compassionate to the way that you were brought up. Do you understand? Am I making sense?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Actually, there's so much involved. So many years have passed. I really can't start on any topic unless you ask me that specific question. Then I can go into it because I really don't know how to begin or where to begin.
I've got a great topic.
Okay.
We're women, right? Mother and daughter conversation right here. And I'm guessing that the majority of the listeners are going to be women. And for the odd non-female, so binary, non-binary or men or everybody else on that spectrum who do not identify as women, this is going to be interesting for you too, because it's going to give you an insight as to how many women have been brought up. Now, when I grew up and I had my first menses, I didn't learn about menses from my mother. I learned about menses at school and I learned about menses with my friends. But it was a very harrowing time. When I first got my first period, it was shocking, it was frightening, it was scary, it was all these things. And I grew up, and I can openly say this to my mom because this is exactly it. When we understand that we were brought up at a different time and we have these conversations, we learn the premise from which our parents bring us up. So I grew up having a little bit of a resentment towards my mother. She's sitting right in front of me. I had a bit of a resentment because I felt, why did she never tell me about my period? It was along the spectrum of traumatic for me. I literally was bleeding. My body was bleeding and I had no idea why. And it was very scary. And I didn't feel like I could talk to my mom about it because she never mentioned, she didn't prepare me for it. So as I grew up over the years, I had an unconscious resentment for my mom for that. Like I felt she had let me down on that side of parenting because she didn't prepare me for my period, for my first menses. Not that long ago, actually, Mom, we talked about this, didn't we? We talked about periods, and I actually decided to ask her. I said, Mom, you never told me about my period. Why? I just asked. I was fearlessly curious about that. I didn't hold any judgment. I thought, I'm ready to ask her why. I'm ready to learn about my mom's point of view. Mom, why don't you share with everybody what you told me?
That's a good question because I never thought that I need to tell you or educate you on that subject because at the time when you went to school, you already have sex education. So I thought the school or from your friends or you have an older sister will tell you this. To me, it's still a very taboo subject. We never talked about sex. When I had my period, you can just imagine what I went through. I thought, I didn't eat chocolate at night on the bed. How come the bed is all chocolatey, full of chocolate? That was the first bleeding. It was a dark, dark red, almost like chocolate color. I was horrified. And again, so I just had to get on with it. And during my time, at least we got to use sanitary pads, and then my mother gave me sanitary pads. But I remember when my mother used to have a period, I was wondering why she would take, that special straw paper that the women would use. They will crush it and rub it and soften it. And that was what they used. They did not have sanitary pads. That was what my mother used when she had a period. So we already graduated and went into sanitary pads we use. So that was why I thought, my time I was ignorant. I thought my children were more ahead of me in this line of education. So that's why it was still a little bit of a taboo subject for us. We still don't discuss these such personal things as sex, and the body changes. So that's the reason why, Melissa. I'm sorry.
Oh, Mom. First of all, I appreciate you saying sorry, but I also know, now I know because I asked you that you were just simply bringing me up the way you were brought up. It was relevant for your time. And actually, I remember how you first said it to me. You said to me, I was respecting your privacy. It is a personal issue, not for me to discuss with you, and that for you to come and talk to me if you needed to. But really, it was personal hygiene, meaning you didn't even want to pry. And as you said, it was a matter for me to learn at school because we had sex education around that topic. But isn't that interesting? Listeners, I really want you to really pay attention to this. Mom and I literally sat at the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to perspective. I feel it's so personal that I only wanted to hear it from my mom. And my mom felt it was so personal that really she wanted to stay out of it unless I was open to invite her into my world.
Yes, my goodness, we couldn't be more different. And we all thought we were doing the right thing.
And so, listeners, be fearlessly curious. Each of us, we're on our own timeline. We are on our own trajectory of life. Therefore, we build a narrative about the world and a life that is relative to us. But you see, we take it for granted. We just simply assume that our parents, because we came from them, have the same perspective, but they lived in a different time. Mom, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what family values you were brought up in.
We were brought up to always respect our parents, honor our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles, anyone who is older than us in the house in the hierarchy. Our older sister, older brother, that's why we don't address each other by name. The younger ones always call their older sisters kaka or kache in Chinese, or I don't speak Tamil, so, or abang or koko, and also what number they are, so that immediately you know, oh, she's a third child, the way we address each other. So a lot of respect and always care for each other and share whatever we have when we eat. We always eat together. What little we have, nice things we always share. And even clothes, nice clothes, which were expensive, meaning my mother would make all our clothes. It would be hand-me-down because I have two sisters younger than me. So my good clothes I'll wear until I grow out of it, and I give it to the sister below me, and so forth. And it all goes the same for boys, you see. So nothing is wasted. We tell them never to waste because money is not easy to come by. And education is most important. That's what our parents can afford to give us. So that's what I think.
Okay, thank you, Mom. I'm curious about one other thing. Now, well, not now, we hear the word feminism and being a feminist and equal rights. And this is all languaging that's going on. We're seeing the discrepancy between men and women in the workplace and women having careers. So I'm just curious, in that hierarchy of family, what was the placement of the male gender and the female gender? And I'm being specific because back then it was just binary, male or female. Now, of course, Mom is also fascinated by this. We have everything in between too.
Oh, in my time, father is the most important figure. What he says goes, although the mother has certain amount of say in the house if you have an understanding father or husband. Otherwise, you don't question your husband. He's the one, he says, and it goes. No more question. And our place is always below our husband. We don't question him. That's why there were very few divorces in our days. You accept it. The Chinese has a saying that when your husband is in the house, he's yours. When he leaves the house, he's not your husband.
Wow.
Yes. So he can be someone else's playmate or whatever. But the minute he comes back, he's your husband. So you don't question his whereabouts. Yes.
Well, wait. I need to pause you there. This is the first time I've heard this. So in essence, it's almost making infidelity something that is accepted in an unwritten way.
Well, yes, you just keep quiet because he still brings home food. He still loves you. He takes you out. He brings the family on holidays, educates the children. He's there for you whenever you want him. Only when he goes out, he just have a little fling here and there.
My.
Just accept it because he loves you.
Wow.
That doesn't change his love for you.
Wow.
No divorces. Divorce is almost a taboo subject. There's a big stigma for divorcees.
Do you feel, Mom, that maybe that that practice or that conditioning, because it's a conditioning, you're taught that, right? You're taught to live by that rule, is a way to take the power away from women. Because if you're saying to me, well, actually, it's the same for women. As long as you're on the house, you must fulfill your role as a wife and a mother. But once you leave the house, you too can. But was that the case or not the case?
Oh, no. You'll be an outcast in the whole society. They'll blame you. They always blame the woman.
Oh, don't they always? Yes.
Yeah, they always blame the woman. There's no equality at all.
And Mom, I have to say, don't women also blame women?
Unfortunately, we do. Instead of blaming your husband, I mean, it takes two hands to clap. You cannot always blame the other woman if your husband is not made available to them and entice them with money or gifts. And those women don't have anything. They have nothing to lose. So it's not entirely the man's fault. We always blame ourselves. I mean, another woman, you should blame the man as well.
I agree with you. Ooh, I think this conversation could go for many, many, many rounds. But let me just bring it back here. And listeners, listen, if you want Mom and I to delve into the conversation of relationship and infidelity and marriage in another podcast episode, make sure you leave a comment and let me know that's what you want, because we could definitely do that. But for today, I want to come back to values, and I want to come back to generational differences. And the reason why is because we are approaching year end. We're approaching the festive season. We're approaching the new year. And typically it's a time when families come together. And it's typically a time also that can be very high stressed, because family members of all generations commune. And it can get very grating because people have different opinions, people have different ways of doing things. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to really lean into this compassionate way of being curious, remembering that the person sitting opposite you, even if it's your sibling, even if it's someone of the same generation as you, is going to see life completely differently. Even on the things that you think you agree on, and you may describe as being agreeable to, you still view differently because we are all different. But what more the elders in your family? So having boundaries, I believe, is also very important. How do we respectfully tell an elder that you don't agree on a subject? How would you receive that, Mom? If I didn't agree with you about something, what would be the best way for me to communicate with you that I don't agree?
Well, I must say I'm more open to it now. Many years ago, I was not open, and I said, no, I don't want to hear. I'm not ready to hear what you have to say. What you have to say does not matter. Just do what I think is right. Don't give me things that's going to annoy me or work me up. I don't want to listen to your reasons. You see, that's how we were brought up. So it took me a long time to try and say, I must not do that. I must give them a chance to explain. And I must say, in a way, Melissa has taken me through this journey. And I've learned quite a bit that we have to listen. And then we will realize why the youth behave the way they do. Just as much as they don't understand us, we don't understand them. You see? But we are not willing to listen, and we always use age as our weapon. And then the young ones will have to draw back, or the parents will tell them, quiet, no more answering grandma. Respect, it's rude. I think we do much less of that now. I'm quite proud to say.
I'm extremely proud of you, Mom. I mean, again, going to mention, Mom, you were born in the 30s. I was born in the 70s. That's 4 decades of difference nearly, right? And even if it's 1 decade, it's already a different generation.
Absolutely.
And to be mindful of that, and this request that no matter your age, the most valuable quality that you can offer yourself is the quality of listening. Because at the end of the day, when we find conflict in a conversation, who is the person who gets upset is you. So how do we find peace in a conversation is by listening and meeting someone where they are. I always say that, can I meet you where you are? So I can hear your opinion and I can say, okay, I hear your opinion. I actually don't understand it. And it makes sense that I don't understand it because I didn't live your time. I cannot see things through your eyes. I've tried. I'm going to try. And I'm also willing to accept that no matter how hard I try, maybe I will still never get it. And am I able to just acknowledge that that is your point of view and that is how you see the world? And can we still stand by each other?
You mean agree to disagree?
Not even go that far. I don't even need to disagree with you. I can just acknowledge that that is how you see the world. And maybe if it causes me harm, let's say, let's take it really one step further, because this can cross on many areas, which we won't go in depth, but this can cross on sexual preference, it could cross on career choice, partner choice, religion, politics, parenting. Okay, let's just cover some of those areas between adults and parents. I could not agree with you, and I could believe that your opinion, right, actually harms me. I could believe that. How do we still bridge that? Is by me, I think my way would be to say, Mom, your opinion I find is going to harm me. So I request that you don't share that opinion with me.
Yeah, I guess that's the best way out. There's no point because you're walking on a railroad track, parallel lines. You can speak until the cows come home. You will never reach a conclusion which will satisfy both. So you keep to your own and we respect each other as much as we can, with much difficulty sometimes. And try not to touch on those topics. I mean, what is there? What's the value? What's the point?
There's a million other things that we could talk about. So why don't we focus on the things that we share?
Yes.
There you go. We share.
And enjoy,
We enjoy.
And life is so short. We want to enjoy. I want to enjoy my children, my grandchildren. So it's no point arguing every time we meet. What's the point? And both go away unhappy. So I've learned a lot through the years. Very slowly, but surely.
Well, Mom, I wouldn't say very slowly. You've lived many years. And I would say that the way that you have grown, if I may say so, what I've witnessed, and it's been a privilege for me to witness, you have opened and expanded your point of view and your mind way beyond many people who are half your age.
Yes, because in a way I'm lucky because I have you to teach me. Honestly, I mean, you gave me a lot of headaches. Don't think there was not a bumpy road. Big bumps along the road. Very big bumps. Big headaches and heartbreaks. Phew. Anyway, we won't go into that.
There's the railroad track, right, Mom? That's the railroad track.
So I think now I'm on a happy track, quite on the fourth gear cruising.
Oh, nice. In fact, just today, literally before recording this episode, Mom and I were in the car coming back from lunch and we were having a conversation. She was asking my point of view about something. And I said to her, in as much as I understand where you're coming from, I completely disagree. And it was so wonderful. After that, I said, Mom, isn't it lovely that we've reached this point in our lives where we can sit next to each other, disagree quite passionately on a topic, but not get heated. We can just acknowledge and respect that we have a different point of view. I'm not trying to force my point of view on her, and neither am I trying to change her mind, and she's not trying to change mine. We respect each other as individuals. And I think this is the most important part of any parent and child relationship, is that we have to acknowledge, maybe harder for the parent, to acknowledge that your child is their own person. And even though you bring them up with your values, sometimes it's enforced, but ultimately you are bringing them up with your values, that the values that they carry forward is still going to be an interpretation of your values. It's their values still, and it may be different. They may think it's the same, but everything is interpreted differently. So relationships ultimately healthy relationships are about meeting each other, focusing on the stuff that brings joy, that you can share, and acknowledging your differences, acknowledging them. We don't have to accept them. I just need to acknowledge them because we are different people. And as much as I want my mom to accept me for who I am, that's every child's gripe with most parents, right? I just want you to accept me as who I am. Then I first have to accept my mother as who she is. I cannot ask for what I cannot give. What do you think, Mom? Let's wrap up. What are your final thoughts on this? What were your thoughts for parents and children who who don't have this blessing of being able to communicate?
Oh, that's going to be tough. Normally, it's the parents who will not listen. Because I have also spoken to my peers, my friends, who tell me they have difficult children, or children who don't care about them. So I told them what I tried to do with my own daughter, but it's, no, 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 my daughter is not like that. She thinks she knows everything I don't. She doesn't care about me. She only wants my money. When she wants money, she calls me. Other than that, she's either too busy or, no, I call you back, and she's always on this phone. When I talk to her, she said, I'm busy, Mom. They're always busy. Always. 24 hours a day, they're too busy. But when they want something, we are not too busy to listen to them. You see? So I can understand how my friends feel also, because the children also, they don't give time to their mothers and they have their own stories. So
I love that you said that they have their own stories, because there is always a reason why,
yes.
right? And you were leading up to, why do you think that is? When a child chooses to separate themselves from a parent, because normally it's a child that will choose that. It is less common for a parent to be estranged from a child, right?
I think the children, they want their freedom, and we can be over domineering, trying to be, in a way, always telling them what we want them to do, or exact time to have dinner, or, oh, you wore the wrong dress, and why did you cut your hair like this? They'll all make comments, just shoot out of their mouth without thinking that it might hurt the young person's feelings. Because we never think about that. As a mother, I thought it's my right. I just tell my child, hey, why did you cut your hair that way? It's horrible. Why those tattoos? My gosh, over my dead body. Things like that. Some children can't take that. So they rather go away, live somewhere else, and see you less. And say, hi, Mom, once a month, come over for lunch or something like that. There's always two sides to the coin.
So, Mom, thank you. So just some closing thoughts, like well wishes for this festive season coming up. What tip would you give? Because you've experienced many family holidays. When you can sense a little tension coming up during a family gathering, what's one thing that you would advise someone to do in order to prevent a storm from happening?
If you can't say something nice, don't say anything. Just keep quiet and just walk away, which is one of the most difficult things to do. I think that's the best you can do. Yeah, because when you're heated, you say things you don't mean. If you walk away, 3 hours later, you come back, you would have forgotten. Because basically they're part of your family. You love them unconditionally, whether they argue with you or not. I don't know how the children feel, but that's how normally parents are very forgiving.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mom, for agreeing to be part of this podcast. Honestly, it would not be able to be what it is. This would not happen if you were not being part of this podcast, because you were instrumental in my audio journey.
Really? Well, I'm flattered you think so. And if I can help in any way, it's always my pleasure.
And I look forward to our festive and New Year season, and perhaps a few more episodes with you along this series. So, listeners, you want to hear more from Mum? You want to hear about her perspective and what the possibilities are for our elders to change? Maybe this is something you want to share with your mum, who may be resistant, just to show her, to model to her that anything is possible if we're committed to change. We want to change a relationship. We need to change the way we view ourselves within that relationship. It all starts with being fearlessly curious. It all starts with having the intention to learn more about yourself, to learn more about the other party, so that when we know better, we can be better. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the new year. Until the next time, be fearlessly curious.